Hello Midnights. Up next, the haunted Okiku Doll, a brother's gift, a sister's love. Let us know where you are listening from and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. In Japan's northern reaches, within Iwamizawa, Hokkaido's tranquil Mannenji Temple, rests an artifact both chilling and captivating, the Okiku Doll. Far more than a traditional porcelain figure, this unassuming doll is central to one of Japan's most enduring and unsettling urban legends, a tale woven with threads of love, loss, and the inexplicable, persistent growth of human hair. The myth of the Okiku Doll blends familial grief, ancient spiritual beliefs, and the truly uncanny, transforming a child's toy into a revered and enigmatic relic, a silent testament to the blurred lines between the living and the spiritual. The Okiku Doll's story began in 1918, a year etched in history as the devastating conclusion of World War I. While the world reeled from the war's aftermath, Japan was simultaneously undergoing an accelerated period of modernization, its cultural identity evolving amidst burgeoning industrialization and global engagement. It was in this dynamic era that Ikachi Suzuki, then 17, a young man navigating the cusp of adulthood, visited a maritime exhibition in Sapporo. This was no mere local display, it was likely a grand industrial or cultural fair, brimming with the wonders of new technologies, exotic goods, and showcasing Japan's burgeoning prowess in seafaring and trade. Amidst the vibrant displays and the hum of progress, Ikichi found himself drawn not to a technological marvel, but to a charming, traditional Japanese doll. Standing approximately 40 centimeters tall, the doll was a typical Ichimatsu doll, renowned for its remarkably lifelike depiction of a young girl. These dolls, named after an 18th-century kabuki actor celebrated for his naturalistic portrayals, often featured realistic expressions and, intriguingly, could even be crafted with actual human hair to enhance their verisimilitude. This particular Okiku doll boasted a distinctive bob-cut hairstyle, a chic and popular look for young girls during Japan's Taisho era from 1912 to 1926, symbolizing a gentle shift towards more contemporary aesthetics. Adorned in an intricately embroidered kimono, perhaps featuring auspicious symbols of prosperity or vibrant floral motifs meticulously stitched with fine silk thread, it exemplified the exquisite craftsmanship and artistic sensibility of the period. Its delicately painted face, with a serene, closed mouth and rosy lips, conveyed an impression of innocent, perpetual happiness. Captivated by its remarkably lifelike charm and the tender innocence it embodied, Ikichi chose it as a perfect gift for his beloved 2-year-old sister, Kikuko, hoping it would bring her joy. Kikuko, with the unreserved affection of a child, immediately adored her new doll. For her, Okiku was not merely a plaything, she became a cherished confidant, an inseparable companion. Kikuko named it Okiku, an endearing diminutive of her own name, a common practice that in this instance subtly deepened the unfolding legend. This seemingly simple act of naming resonates profoundly with traditional Japanese folklore, where the name Okiku also features prominently in tales of lingering spirits, most notably the classic ghost story Bancho Tsurayashiki, creating an unintended foreshadowing of the doll's future. Okiku became Kikuko's constant shadow, present during her lively games, at every quiet meal, and even tucked intimately beside her at night, a silent, porcelain witness to the ephemeral joys of her fleeting childhood. Tragically, in 1919, just a year after receiving her beloved Okiku, Kikuko succumbed to a severe respiratory illness, likely exacerbated by the devastating global Spanish flu pandemic that swept across the world. Her sudden death at the tender age of 3 shattered the Suzuki family, plunging them into an abyss of grief. Their profound sorrow was amplified by a desperate, aching desire to maintain any tangible connection with their lost child. In their profound bereavement, the doll became more than just a toy, it transformed into a sacred repository of their sorrow, their memories, and their enduring love. In the immediate aftermath of Kikuko's death, the grief-stricken Suzuki family, steeped in traditional Japanese spiritual customs, placed the Okiku doll on their family altar, a butsudan or kamadana. This act was far more than a gesture of mere remembrance, it was a profound ritual of ancestor worship, a heartfelt prayer offered for Kikuko's nascent spirit to find peace in the afterlife, and a deeply held belief that her innocent soul might find solace and continue to reside within her most cherished toy. This Japanese cultural practice highlights a fundamental connection between the living and the deceased, where beloved objects, especially those imbued with strong emotional attachment or associated with tragic loss, can become consecrated vessels for their owner's essence. For the Suzukis, Okiku was now an indispensable, tangible link to their daughter, imbued with her memory and their enduring, profound sorrow. It was here, amidst the quiet reverence of the family home, a sanctuary of grief and remembrance, that the first chilling signs of the extraordinary began to appear. Initially, the changes were incredibly subtle, easily dismissed by wary eyes as mere tricks of light or perhaps the hopeful, yearning imagination of bereaved parents. A slight elongation of the doll's bob, or a stray strand seemingly out of place, might have sparked fleeting curiosity rather than outright alarm. But as weeks stretched into months, and the seasons turned, the subtle became undeniable, then astonishing. The family, intimately familiar with every detail of the doll's appearance, began to notice with growing on a nascent sense of trepidation that the doll's neatly trimmed, shoulder-length hair was actively and inexplicably growing. The evidence quickly accumulated, becoming an irrefutable phenomenon that the family could no longer dismiss. Progressive lengthening, what began as a minor, almost imperceptible elongation steadily transformed into a clear, measurable growth. The hair visibly extended past its shoulders, then slowly but surely past its waist, and eventually reached her knees, a dramatic and impossible transformation from its original, precise bob style. The family could mark its steady progression, perhaps even using informal measurements or comparing its current length with precious old photographs of the doll taken during Kikuko's brief lifetime, each observation deepening the mystery. Need for trimming. Most compellingly, the doll's hair began to appear unkempt and tangled, much like natural human hair left untrimmed for an extended period. This profoundly unusual characteristic for an inanimate object prompted the family to take the extraordinary and deeply uncanny step of actually cutting it, a solemn and almost ritualistic act performed on what they believed was a vessel for their daughter's spirit. This periodic trimming was undeniable, tactile proof that the doll behaved in a way fundamentally alien to its manufactured nature, requiring care akin to that of a living being. Human-like characteristics, crucially, the new growth maintained the exact same fine, silky black texture and natural color as the original hair, entirely consistent with the hair of a young Japanese child. It did not fray, unravel, or change composition in any way. It appeared to grow organically from the doll's scalp, possessing the same tensile strength and resilience as human hair. This biological consistency defied all logical explanation for an inanimate object. Collective observation and deeper phenomena, this wasn't merely one person's isolated perception or an individual delusion. The phenomenon was openly discussed and observed among all members of the family, with each adult and older child confirming the observations of the others, lending it undeniable communal validity. This shared experience solidified their conviction, cementing it as a profound family secret before it slowly began to ripple outwards into public consciousness. Furthermore, early accounts from the Suzuki family, often recounted in hushed tones, spoke of other subtle paranormal occurrences centered around the doll. These included faint, unintelligible whispering voices heard in the doll's vicinity during quiet hours, small household objects seemingly moving on their own when no one was watching, or the chilling, fleeting feeling of a shadow child's presence, a sense of being watched or a fleeting, dark form glimpsed in the periphery, in rooms where the doll was kept. These additional, albeit anecdotal and deeply personal, phenomena solidified their conviction that Okiku was truly a vessel for their daughter's enduring spirit, transforming their private grief into a profound, uncanny, and deeply spiritual experience. The legend deepened and broadened its reach through the decades. By 1938, nearly 2 decades after Kikuko's tragic passing, the Suzuki family faced a significant and life-altering change, a momentous move from their home in Hokkaido to Shikabetsu, then part of Japanese Sakhalin, an island north of Hokkaido that was part of the Japanese Empire. This relocation, perhaps driven by economic opportunity or the yearning for a fresh start after years of quiet mourning, presented a profound dilemma. They simply couldn't bear to part with Okiku, feeling she was a living, breathing part of Kikuko's cherished memory. Yet, transporting a doll so deeply imbued with their daughter's spirit on a long, uncertain journey across the sea seemed daunting, fraught with spiritual implications, and potentially disrespectful to the spirit they believed resided within. After much deliberation, consulting with spiritual advisors, and with heavy hearts, they made the solemn decision to entrust the doll to Mannenji Temple in Iwamizawa. They believed this sacred Buddhist temple would be a more fitting and spiritually secure resting place, a consecrated ground where Kikuko's spirit could find eternal peace. This pivotal decision irrevocably ensured the doll's place not just in family lore, but in the broader tapestry of Japanese folklore. It was after its arrival at Mannenji that Okiku's story transitioned from a private family tragedy into a captivating public legend. Japanese temples often serve as more than just places of worship, they are deeply woven into the cultural fabric, acting as repositories of local history, unique artifacts, and profound spiritual narratives, naturally attracting worshippers, pilgrims, and curious travelers alike. The Buddhist monks at Mannenji, perhaps initially approaching the tales with a degree of healthy skepticism, quickly became the doll's new custodians and, more importantly, consistent attestants to its uncanny phenomenon. With deep respect, they displayed the doll in a secure glass case, allowing visitors to witness the curiosity for themselves while maintaining an appropriate distance. Word of the doll whose hair grows spread gradually, carried first by whispers through local Hokkaido communities, then documented in regional newspapers. These compelling human interest stories, blending the universal themes of grief and the allure of the supernatural, eventually caught the attention of national publications and television programs, particularly during the boom of supernatural interest that swept Japan during the latter half of the 20th century. Journalists, documentary filmmakers, and paranormal enthusiasts flocked to the temple, drawn by the irresistible pull of the unknown. The visual proof, a doll with ever-lengthening hair that clearly necessitated regular trimming, provided an irresistible hook for the public imagination. Through countless media reports, mentions in travel guides, powerful word-of-mouth passed down through generations, and eventually the nascent internet, Okiku's legend amplified exponentially, capturing attention globally. The Okiku doll is a deeply ingrained part of Japanese folklore and cultural consciousness, particularly within the realm of ghost stories and supernatural phenomena. Here's a breakdown of what people in Japan generally say and believe about this myth. A beloved, tragic story, the core narrative of a young girl's spirit residing in her cherished doll after her untimely death resonates deeply. It taps into universal themes of grief, remembrance, and the enduring bond between a child and their possessions. Many Japanese find the story itself quite touching and sad, rather than purely horrifying, despite the uncanny elements. Belief in the spirit's presence. Japanese folklore has a strong tradition of yurei, which translates to ghosts or spirits, particularly those of individuals who died with strong attachments, unfulfilled wishes, or in tragic circumstances. Okiku is often seen as a classic example of a yurei. The child's spirit, unable to fully move on, has attached itself to the doll she loved so much. The growing hair is seen as a tangible manifestation of her continued presence. Reverence and respect. While the story is certainly eerie, the doll is generally regarded with a sense of reverence and respect, particularly by those who visit Mannenji Temple. It's not typically portrayed as a malevolent or vengeful spirit like some other haunted objects in Japanese folklore. Instead, it's more of a lingering, gentle presence. The temple monks who care for her trim her hair out of respect and to appease her spirit, rather than out of fear of a curse. Cultural significance of dolls. Dolls hold significant cultural importance in Japan, often being seen as more than just toys. They can be regarded as vessels for spirits, or as objects that absorb the essence of their owners. This cultural context makes the Okiku doll's story particularly believable and impactful for many Japanese people. Festivals like Hinamatsuri also highlight the deep connection between dolls and Japanese tradition. A true story for many. While scientific explanations might be lacking, the repeated observations of the hair growth by the temple and anecdotal forensic observations lend a sense of credibility to the story for a significant portion of the Japanese public. It's often presented as a true story or a real-life mystery, even if the mechanisms remain unexplained. Pop culture influence. The Okiku doll, and the motif of a long-haired girl ghost, has had a profound impact on Japanese horror culture. Characters like Sadako from The Ring draw heavily from this archetype. This exposure through media further solidifies the myth in the public imagination, even if some people only know it through these fictionalized adaptations. A place of curiosity and pilgrimage. For many, visiting Mannenji Temple to see the Okiku doll is an act of curiosity or even a form of pilgrimage. They go to witness the phenomenon firsthand, to pay respects, or simply to experience a piece of unique Japanese folklore. Photography is often forbidden, adding to the mystique and encouraging direct observation and personal reflection. For many people in Japan, the Okiku doll isn't just a scary story, it's a poignant legend rooted in a belief system that acknowledges the spiritual world and the potential for human spirits to linger. It's a source of both wonder and a gentle, respectful awe. Today, in 2025, the Okiku doll remains steadfastly housed at Mannenji Temple in Iwamizawa City, Hokkaido, Japan. It continues to be one of the temple's most unique and revered attractions, drawing thousands of visitors who journey specifically to witness the legendary doll and perhaps feel the presence of the young spirit. The temple, itself a site of spiritual solace and quiet contemplation, finds itself at the heart of an enduring, inexplicable mystery, a bridge between the mundane and the miraculous. The primary caretakers of the Okiku doll are the Buddhist monks of Mannenji Temple. They have embraced this extraordinary responsibility with a profound sense of solemnity and spiritual duty, viewing it as a sacred trust rather than merely maintaining a tourist curiosity. Their guardianship involves several key aspects, all performed with deep reverence. Display and protection. The doll is meticulously preserved within a secure, climate-controlled, glass-enclosed display case, typically situated in a quieter, more contemplative part of the temple's main hall to maintain its sacred reverence. This sophisticated enclosure safeguards the delicate doll from environmental damage such as humidity fluctuations, direct sunlight, dust accumulation, and extreme temperature variations that could compromise its fragile materials. Crucially, it also prevents direct physical contact from curious or disrespectful hands, preserving its mystique and integrity. Photography of the doll is generally strictly prohibited, further emphasizing its sacred status and discouraging sensationalism in favor of respectful observation. The still-growing hair, a century of unexplained growth. Perhaps the most compelling and continuously reported aspect of their care is the ongoing, deeply uncanny practice of trimming the doll's hair. Temple reports, consistent across generations of monks, state unequivocally that the hair, now well over a century old, continues to grow at a discernible and steady rate, necessitating periodic trims to prevent it from outgrowing its display case. What began as a traditional bob has reportedly grown to an astonishing length, now well past her knees and, by some accounts, nearly touching the floor of her enclosure if left untrimmed. This sustained, inexplicable growth, observed for decades by multiple generations of monks, is the core of the doll's enigmatic appeal and the central, unwavering claim of its supernatural nature. The temple meticulously documents this phenomenon through internal records and occasional public statements, sometimes sharing photographs that illustrate the hair's progression over time. Reverend Naoki, a revered former chief priest who served for many years, has been a consistent public voice, affirming in numerous interviews and media features, such as those on Japanese television programs and in local news articles, that the hair indeed grows and requires trimming. He and other priests describe the hair as possessing the remarkably fine texture, natural luster, and appearance characteristic of a human child's hair. When cut, it reportedly leaves distinct, clean ends, unlike the fraying, unraveling, or tearing that would occur with synthetic fibers or merely loosening strands. The act of trimming the hair is performed by the temple priests themselves, often during a solemn ceremony accompanied by resonant Buddhist prayers for Kikuko's spirit. This haircutting is not merely a practical chore, it is a profound, almost parental ritual, a continuation of the tender care Kikuko herself might have received in life, a poignant interaction underscoring the deep-seated belief in her lingering, living presence within the doll. Spiritual stewardship. Beyond the tangible, physical maintenance, the monks act as profound spiritual custodians. They continue the centuries-old tradition of offering daily prayers and respects to the doll, acknowledging it as a sacred vessel for Kikuko's spirit, a point of communion. This aligns with fundamental Buddhist practices of honoring the deceased, providing comfort to restless spirits, and the profound belief that souls can find peace and manifest in certain consecrated objects or places. The temple serves as a powerful, ancient bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds, and their diligent, respectful, and unwavering stewardship of Okiku reinforces this sacred role. Their unwavering presence, consistent testimony, and the very sanctity of their institution lend significant credibility and weight to the legend within Japan, as Buddhist temples are highly respected and integral institutions in Japanese society, embodying tradition and spiritual wisdom. The Okiku doll has thus become an inextricable part of Mannenji Temple's identity, a living, breathing testament to a century-old mystery that continues to defy conventional explanation, holding up a mirror to the limitations of purely rational thought. Its enduring presence in the temple ensures that the poignant story of Kikuko and her beloved doll remains vibrantly alive, a quiet yet powerful testament to the enduring bonds between people and the objects they cherish, even across the seemingly insurmountable veil of death. The experts on the Okiku doll's phenomenon offer distinct, often conflicting, interpretations of its most astonishing and central feature, the continuously growing hair. Their views collectively highlight the fascinating and often unsettling boundary where empirical science, profound cultural belief, and deeply personal experience intersect, creating a complex tapestry of understanding. The Buddhist monks of Mannenji Temple are not just casual observers, they are the foremost, long-term experts on the doll's hair, by virtue of their consistent, century-long observation and direct, ritualistic interaction with it. They unequivocally affirm, with a quiet conviction born of generations of testimony, that the hair genuinely grows. Decades of witness testimony, generations of monks, passing down their observations and duties from one to the next, have served as direct, first-hand witnesses to this baffling phenomenon. Reverend Naoki, a revered former chief priest, has repeatedly and publicly testified to the hair's consistent growth in numerous interviews and media appearances, his words carrying the weight of his spiritual office. He consistently describes the undeniable need for regular trimming to prevent the hair from growing excessively long, reportedly well past the doll's knees, a staggering length far exceeding its original, neatly styled bob cut. The temple's internal records, meticulously kept over decades, and occasional public photographs serve as crucial historical documentation of this ongoing process, providing compelling visual evidence that reinforces their claims. Human hair characteristics: the monks describe the new growth as having the distinct, unmistakable texture, fine quality, and natural black color characteristic of a young human child's hair. They emphatically note that when trimmed, the hair produces clean, distinct cut ends, unlike the fraying, unraveling, or fibrous disintegration that would occur with synthetic doll hair or other manufactured materials. This consistent observation, spanning well over 100 years and across multiple priestly generations, strongly underpins their unwavering conviction that the growth is biological in nature, even if its ultimate source is spiritual and beyond material explanation. Spiritual interpretation: for the temple, the growing hair is far from being merely a curiosity or an anomaly, it is considered profound, tangible evidence of the doll's spiritual animation. They hold an unwavering belief that it is a direct, physical manifestation of Kikuko's enduring spirit, which continues to live and subtly interact with the physical world through her cherished toy. The act of trimming the hair is thus a sacred ritual, a poignant continuation of care for Kikuko's lingering presence, a spiritual connection maintained and reaffirmed through a physical, deeply respectful act. It is a dialogue between the living and the departed. Despite the temple's steadfast and understandable reluctance to permit extensive, invasive scientific study, a stance rooted in the doll's sacred status and a profound desire to preserve its spiritual integrity and delicate physical form, accounts of limited, non-intrusive examinations of the doll's hair samples have circulated for decades, primarily within Japanese media and documentaries. Reported human hair confirmation: the most widely cited scientific observation comes from Dr. Koudo Hasegawa, a researcher often mentioned in Japanese reports and documentaries. He is consistently reported to have examined microscopic hair samples from the Okiku Doll and to have concluded that they possess the specific morphological and structural characteristics unequivocally found in human hair. This includes the observed presence of a medulla, the innermost core of a hair shaft, distinct cuticle scale patterns, which is the outer protective layer of overlapping cells, and a specific pigmentation distribution, all unique microscopic markers that definitively differentiate human hair from animal hair or various synthetic fibers commonly used in doll making. These findings, while compelling and widely referenced, exist largely outside the rigorous peer-reviewed scientific literature and lack comprehensive public documentation. The absence of publicly accessible details regarding precise methodologies, the full chain of custody for samples, the specific accredited laboratory where tests were performed, or independent replication by other scientists, limits their full scientific validation and open scrutiny. The unanswered scientific question: even if the hair samples are definitively confirmed as human, the central scientific enigma remains profound and utterly inexplicable within current understanding. How does human hair grow on an inanimate object? Current biological understanding dictates that hair growth requires living follicles embedded in skin, a continuous blood supply for nutrient delivery, and complex cellular metabolic processes, none of which can possibly occur in a porcelain and cloth doll. This inherent, irresolvable contradiction is precisely what places the phenomenon firmly in the realm of the paranormal for believers and constitutes a profound, unresolved mystery for scientific inquiry, pushing the boundaries of what we understand about life itself. From a purely empirical, rational, and evidence-based perspective, scientific skeptics acknowledge the apparent hair growth but tirelessly propose alternative, non-supernatural explanations. They emphasize, with the rigor of the scientific method, that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary, verifiable evidence, obtained under strictly controlled conditions. Material relaxation and degradation: a prominent and frequently cited theory suggests that the doll's original hair, if it were indeed made of natural fibers including actual human hair, which was sometimes used in high-quality traditional Japanese dolls, might be undergoing a process of material relaxation, subtle stretching, or extremely slow degradation over the century. Environmental factors such as fluctuating humidity and temperature, or even the persistent, relentless pull of gravity over decades, could cause tightly bound, curled, or folded hair strands to gradually loosen, extend, and untangle from their original attachment points. This process would create the illusion of growth without any actual biological processes occurring. What appears to be growth might simply be the material slowly returning to a less compressed or more natural, extended state over an incredibly extended period. Initial construction and slippage. Some traditional doll construction techniques involve securing bundles of hair by folding them and inserting the folded end into a small hole or cavity in the doll's scalp, often secured with a resin-based adhesive or simple friction. Skeptics propose that over the many decades, this internal adhesive could degrade, weaken, or dry out, or the hair itself could subtly shift due to vibrations, slight physical movements, or environmental changes. This imperceptible slippage of the folded portion would slowly allow more of the hair strands to emerge from the doll's scalp, resulting in a gradual lengthening of the visible hair. This process would effectively mimic active biological growth to the casual observer. Confirmation bias and perceptual skew. Skeptics suggest that the powerful, deeply ingrained narrative of a haunted doll whose hair grows, reinforced by decades of temple lore, media attention, and cultural belief, can inevitably lead to a phenomenon known as confirmation bias. Observers, already expecting and wanting to see growth, might interpret subtle changes, minor displacements, or even normal variations in the doll's appearance as significant lengthening. The specific viewing conditions in which the doll is always behind glass, often in dim or fluctuating lighting, with strictly limited direct access or physical measurement could also contribute to perceptual distortions, misinterpretations of the hair's actual state, or simply optical illusions. Lack of controlled study. The most critical and consistently emphasized point for scientific skeptics is the glaring absence of rigorous, independent, and, if necessary, minimally intrusive scientific studies. Without the ability to take precise baseline measurements, remove and analyze sufficient, truly representative samples in controlled environments, or conduct long-term controlled observations in a laboratory setting away from the temple's environment, any claims of biological growth on an inanimate object remain fundamentally unproven by the tenets of the scientific method. Ethical considerations, the doll's deeply sacred status, and the temple's understandable desire to preserve its reverence currently present significant and perhaps insurmountable barriers to such comprehensive scientific investigation, ensuring the mystery persists. Despite these intriguing observations and the anecdotal support from limited forensic examinations, the scientific community remains without a verifiable, non-supernatural explanation that can withstand rigorous scrutiny. This isn't for lack of interest, but rather due to a confluence of factors that make definitive scientific analysis challenging. Firstly, the sacred nature of the Okiku doll, as a vessel for the spirit of the deceased girl Kikuko, understandably makes the Mannenji Temple highly protective of it. This reverence precludes the kind of extensive, invasive, and potentially damaging scientific testing that would be required for a truly comprehensive analysis. Modern forensic science, capable of DNA analysis, precise microscopic examination, and chemical composition tests, would demand direct access and sampling methods that the temple, out of respect for the doll's spiritual significance, is unwilling to permit. Secondly, the existing forensic observations, while compelling in their claims of human hair characteristics, often lack the documentation, methodology, and peer review that are hallmarks of robust scientific inquiry. These observations tend to be historical accounts or individual assessments rather than published studies with controlled variables and verifiable data. Without such rigorous processes, it's difficult for the broader scientific community to accept the findings as conclusive evidence of an inexplicable phenomenon. Potential explanations that have been cautiously floated by some researchers include the possibility of the doll having originally been made with genuine human hair that somehow shifts or expands over time due to environmental factors like humidity, temperature changes, or even the subtle effects of dust and fibers accumulating and intertwining with the existing hair, creating an illusion of growth. However, these remain speculative without concrete evidence. The lack of a rational, empirically supported explanation, coupled with the doll's long history and the unwavering belief surrounding it, firmly cements the Okiku doll's place as one of Japan's most captivating and perplexing legends, a true testament to the mysteries that still lie beyond our current understanding and the limitations of scientific investigation when faced with deeply held cultural and spiritual beliefs. It begs the question, in a world increasingly defined by scientific certainty and empirical data, what profound psychological or spiritual needs does the enduring mystery of the Okiku doll continue to fulfill for humanity, allowing such an inexplicable phenomenon to persist and captivate us across generations? Is our fascination with the doll a testament to the limits of science, or a timeless echo of our innate human desire to believe in something beyond the tangible, to find a comforting connection to those we've lost, and to ponder the very nature of consciousness beyond the confines of life and death?